Ike Morrison stood on the bridge of the New Horizon and watched the massive space station grow larger on the screen. After 50 years of trying, humanity was finally going to join the Galactic Federation. The station was bigger than any city on Earth, made of shining metal and crystal that sparkled in the light of 3 suns. "We made it," said Admiral Lisa Grant as she walked up beside him. Her uniform was perfect, every metal polished bright. 50 years of proving ourselves, and we finally did it. Jake nodded but felt something cold in his stomach. The other species in the Federation were old. Really old. Some had been traveling between stars for thousands of years before humans even learned to make fire. The Vorthak could read minds. The Nexari were made of living crystal. The Etherians were clouds of gas that could control the weather on entire planets. And now they wanted humans to join them. The New Horizon docked at the station with a soft bump. Jake watched as other human ships arrived from all over human space. The Freedom's call came from the Mars colonies. The Star Walker brought representatives from the outer settlements. Earth's best and brightest were here to sign the papers that would make humanity part of something bigger. Admiral Grant led the group through the station's halls. The walls were covered in symbols and writing from dozens of different worlds. Jake saw creatures he had only read about in books. A Zephyrian floated past, its wings making soft music in the air. 2 Hydrosians rolled by like living water in environment suits. They reached a huge chamber with a dome that showed the stars outside. In the center sat 12 beings at a curved table. These were the leaders of the Federation, the oldest and most powerful species in the galaxy. Chancellor Kexthen of the Vorthak stood up. He looked almost human except for his pale skin and large black eyes. When he spoke, his voice seemed to come from inside Jake's head. "Welcome, humans of Earth," Kexthen said. "We have watched your species for many years. You have shown great strength and cleverness. Today, you join the galactic community." Admiral Grant stepped forward with a smile. "Thank you, Chancellor. Humanity is honored to accept membership in the Federation. We look forward to sharing knowledge and working together for peace." Kexthen's mouth curved into what might have been a smile. "Oh, but there has been a misunderstanding. You are not here to join us as equals." The smile vanished from Admiral Grant's face. "What do you mean?" "You are here to serve," said another voice. A Nexari crystal being pulsed with red light as it spoke. "Your species has qualities we need. You adapt quickly. You survive in harsh conditions. You think in ways that surprise us. These traits make you valuable." Jake felt his heart start beating faster. Around the chamber, doors slid shut with soft clicks. The other human representatives looked confused and worried. "As what?" Admiral Grant asked, her voice steady but cold. "Slaves," Kexthen said simply. "Your people will work for us. Some will fight our wars. Others will explore dangerous worlds. The clever ones will solve problems for us. In return, we will let your species live." Admiral Grant's hand moved toward her weapon, but Jake caught her wrist. Energy barriers had appeared around all the humans. They were trapped. "And if we refuse?" Grant asked. "Then you die," said an Etherian, its gas cloud body swirling with angry colors. "All of you. Every human world. Every human ship. Every human life. We have studied your species for decades. We know where you live. We know how you fight. We know how to kill you." Jake looked around the chamber. The 12 species that ruled the galaxy were all staring at the humans with cold eyes. These beings had pretended to be friends for 50 years, just waiting for the right moment to reveal their true plans. "You're making a mistake," Admiral Grant said. "Humans don't make good slaves." "We shall see," Kexthen replied. "You have one day to contact your government and surrender. If you refuse, the attack begins." The energy barriers disappeared, and the humans were led back to their ships. Jake watched Admiral Grant's face as they walked. She looked calm, but he knew her well enough to see the anger burning in her eyes. Back on the New Horizon, Grant called an emergency meeting with all the ship captains. Options? She asked. Captain Ryan Bell of the military escort spoke first. We can't fight them here. Too many ships, too much firepower. But we could send a warning to Earth. Already done, Grant said. But it won't be enough. They have ships positioned near every human world. The moment we refuse, they attack everything at once. Jake studied the star charts on the table. There's something else. Dr. Emma Hayes has been working on an experimental drive system. Something about quantum tunnels through space. The void drive, Grant said slowly. I thought that project was classified. It is. But if it works, it could move our entire fleet somewhere they can't follow us. Captain Bell frowned. Where? Somewhere outside normal space, Jake said. Dr. Hayes calls it the void. It's like a pocket dimension where different rules apply. That sounds dangerous, said another captain. More dangerous than slavery or death? Grant asked. They all fell silent. Through the ship's windows, they could see Federation warships moving into position around the human fleet. There were hundreds of them, maybe thousands. Each one was bigger and more advanced than anything humanity had ever built. Grant made her decision. Contact Dr. Hayes. Tell her to prepare the void drive for immediate use. All ships. What about the people on the human worlds? Captain Bell asked. Grant closed her eyes for a moment. We save who we can. The rest. She opened her eyes, and Jake saw something hard and cold there that he had never seen before. The rest we avenge. The next few hours passed in a blur. Dr. Hayes worked frantically to modify the void drive for multiple ships. Human vessels across the galaxy received coded messages to gather their people and prepare to run. Then the attack began. Jake watched on the main screen as Federation ships opened fire on human colonies. Cities burned. Ships exploded. Millions of people died in the first few minutes. Earth's defense fleet fought back, but it was like throwing rocks at a mountain. Drive ready. Dr. Hayes called from the engine room. All ships, prepare for void jump, Admiral Grant ordered. Space around the human fleet began to tear apart like cloth. A huge black hole opened in front of them, but it wasn't empty. Jake could see lights moving in the darkness, strange colors that had no names. Jump! Grant ordered. The human fleet dove into the tear in space just as Federation ships arrived to destroy them. Behind them, Earth burned. Ahead lay the unknown darkness of the void. As they disappeared into the blackness, Jake heard Admiral Grant whisper a promise, "We'll be back." The void was not what anyone expected. Jake Morrison pressed his face against the window of the New Horizon and stared into the strange darkness outside. It wasn't black like normal space. Instead, it was filled with swirling colors that moved like liquid. Purple mixed with gold, then became silver, then turned into colors that hurt to look at. "Sir, we have a problem," said Lieutenant Commander Alex Turner from his station. "The laws of physics don't work the same way here." Admiral Grant walked over to look at his readings. "Explain." "Our engines should have stopped working the moment we entered this place. But they're running better than ever. Our weapons are showing energy levels that should be impossible. And look at this." Alex pointed to a screen showing the ship's hull. "The damage we took during the escape is healing itself." Jake couldn't believe what he was seeing. The burn marks and holes in the ship's metal were slowly closing up, like wounds healing on living skin. "How is that possible?" "I don't know," Alex said. "But it's happening to all the ships in the fleet." Dr. Emma Hayes came onto the bridge, her hair wild and her eyes bright with excitement. "I've been studying this place for the past 6 hours. It's incredible. The void doesn't just contain matter and energy. It responds to consciousness itself." "What does that mean?" Admiral Grant asked. "Watch this," Emma said. She closed her eyes and concentrated hard. Slowly, a small ball of light appeared in her hand. It pulsed with warm yellow light and felt real when Jake touched it. I thought about light and the void made it real. That's impossible, said Captain Bell, who had just arrived from his own ship. Everything here is impossible, Emma replied. But it works anyway. I think this place was designed to respond to living minds. The stronger the mind, the more the void can do. Over the following days, the human fleet spread out through the strange space. They found floating rocks the size of mountains that glowed with their own light. There were streams of liquid starlight that flowed between invisible shores. Strange music played from nowhere, beautiful and sad at the same time. Carlos Rodriguez, the fleet's chief engineer, began experimenting with their ships. When he thought about making the engines stronger, they became stronger. When he imagined better shields, the shields improved. The ships were changing, becoming something new. It's like the void wants to help us, Carlos told Jake as they stood in the engine room of the New Horizon. The engines now looked like works of art, covered in patterns that seemed to move and breathe. Every time I try to improve something, the improvements work better than they should. But the changes weren't just happening to the ships. The people were changing too. Jake noticed it first in the younger crew members. They could run faster and jump higher than before. Some could see in the dark without any light. Others could hold their breath for impossible amounts of time. Dr. Nicole Brooks, the fleet's psychologist, discovered something even stranger. She found that she could sense what other people were feeling, even when they were on different ships. It's like we're all connected now, she told Jake. I can feel everyone's emotions, their thoughts. It doesn't hurt, but it's different. The changes worried some people. A group of older officers, led by Captain Martin Cole, wanted to find a way back to normal space. We're not human anymore, Cole argued during a fleet meeting. Whatever this place is doing to us, it's wrong. But Admiral Grant had different ideas. Look around you, she said to the assembled captains. Our ships are stronger. Our people are healthier. We have abilities that could make us powerful enough to fight back against the Federation. At what cost? Cole asked. What if we lose what makes us human? Grant's eyes were hard. The Federation already took our humanity from us when they burned our worlds. Now we have a chance to become something better. Something they can't destroy. As months passed, the human fleet established a base on one of the larger floating rocks. They called it Haven, and it became their first city in the void. The rock responded to their presence, growing buildings and creating breathable air around them. Alex Turner made an important discovery while exploring the deeper parts of the void. He found ruins. Massive structures made of the same strange materials as the void itself, but clearly built by intelligent beings. There was someone here before us, Alex reported to Admiral Grant. They built cities, maybe an entire civilization. But they're gone now. Jake joined the exploration team that went to study the ruins. The buildings were beautiful but alien, with curves and angles that didn't quite make sense. Inside, they found rooms filled with glowing symbols and strange machines that hummed with power. Dr. Hayes studied the symbols for weeks before making a breakthrough. Their instructions, she announced excitedly. These beings, whoever they were, left us a manual. They called themselves the Architects, and they built the void as a testing ground. Testing for what? Admiral Grant asked. To see which species were worthy of inheriting their power, Emma replied. They wanted to find beings who could handle the responsibility of reshaping reality itself. The team found vast libraries of knowledge stored in crystal matrices. The Architects had mastered sciences that humans had never dreamed of. They could build matter from pure thought, travel between dimensions, and live forever if they chose to. But there was something sad about the ruins. The Architects were gone, and their cities were empty. Emma found records that suggested they had simply chosen to leave, moving on to some higher plane of existence. They were waiting for someone to take their place, Emma explained. Someone who could use their knowledge but wouldn't make the same mistakes they did. What mistakes? Jake asked. Emma's face was serious. They became so powerful that they forgot how to care about anything. They could create and destroy entire worlds, but they lost the ability to love, to hope, to dream. In the end, they were gods with empty hearts. As the human fleet grew stronger and more skilled with void technology, Admiral Grant began making plans. "We've been here for 2 years," she said during a fleet meeting. "We've learned their secrets and gained their power. Now it's time to decide what we do with it." Captain Cole spoke up. "We could find a new galaxy. Start over somewhere the Federation can't reach us. And let them win." Grant's voice was cold. "Let them keep the worlds they stole from us. Let them enslave other species the way they tried to enslave us." "What are you suggesting?" Cole asked, though Jake could see he already knew the answer. Grant stood up and walked to the window that showed the swirling colors of the void. "We go back. We show the Federation what humanity has become. And we take back what's ours." Jake looked around the room at the faces of the other officers. Some looked excited. Others looked worried. All of them looked different than they had 2 years ago. Their eyes held depths that hadn't been there before. Their bodies moved with new grace and strength. They were still human, but they were also something more. Something the Federation had never expected and could never be prepared for. "How long do we need to prepare?" Jake asked. Admiral Grant smiled, but it wasn't a kind smile. "We've been preparing since the day they betrayed us. Now we finish what they started." 25 years had passed since humanity entered the void. Jake Morrison, now Admiral Morrison, stood in the command center of New Terra, humanity's massive mobile capital. The floating city was bigger than any space station the Federation had ever built, its towers reaching up into the swirling colors of the void like fingers grasping at impossible stars. Around him, the next generation worked at control stations that responded to thought as much as touch. These were the Void-born, humans who had never seen normal space. They were different from the original refugees in ways that still amazed Jake. Lieutenant Sarah Kim materialized beside him without warning, stepping out of the air itself like walking through an invisible door. Her skin had a faint silver shine, and her eyes held depths that seemed to go on forever. "Admiral, we're receiving signals from normal space," Sarah reported. "The resistance cells are calling for help again." Jake nodded. The signals had been coming for years now. Humans who had escaped the original attack had been fighting a hopeless war against the Federation. Their messages painted a picture of a galaxy under tyranny, with dozens of species enslaved or destroyed. "Any word from Admiral Grant?" Jake asked. "She's still in the deep labs with Dr. Hayes, working on the final preparations for return," Sarah said. "But General Stone wants to see you. Something about the new combat trials." Jake made his way through the city's gleaming halls. Void-born citizens floated past him, some walking on walls or ceilings as easily as floors. Children played games that involved reshaping reality itself, creating small animals from pure thought and racing them through obstacle courses made of solidified light. He found General Marcus Stone in the military district, watching a training exercise that would have been impossible anywhere else. A squad of Void-born soldiers was practicing assault techniques against holographic enemies. But these weren't normal holograms. They were solid constructs created from the soldiers' minds, as real and dangerous as any physical opponent. One soldier, Corporal Danny Wright, phased through an enemy's shield and delivered a killing blow with a sword made of crystallized darkness. Another, Private Maria Santos, manipulated gravity to send 3 opponents flying into the ceiling while she ran up a wall to attack from above. "Impressive," Jake said as he joined General Stone. "They're not just impressive," Stone replied. "They're terrifying. These kids don't think like we do. They see reality as something flexible, something they can change. Watch this." Stone called out to the training squad. "Kim, show the Admiral what you've been working on." Sarah stepped into the training area and faced a target that was supposed to be indestructible. She stared at it for a moment, then reached out with one hand. The target didn't explode or break apart. It simply stopped existing, as if it had never been there at all. "She didn't destroy it," Stone explained quietly. "She convinced reality that it was never real in the first place. The target isn't damaged or broken. It just isn't. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. How many of them can do that? About half of the Void-born. And they're getting stronger every year. They walked away from the training area and into Stone's office. The walls showed views of the human fleet, now hundreds of ships strong. Each vessel was a work of art and technology that blended human engineering with architect knowledge and void energy. Are you having second thoughts about the return? Stone asked. Jake stared out at the fleet. Sometimes. We came here as refugees. Now we're going back as, what? Conquerors? Liberators? I'm not sure there's a difference anymore. There is a difference, said a new voice. Dr. Amanda Foster entered the office, her civilian council robes flowing around her like liquid starlight. The difference is in what we do after we win. Amanda had been one of the original refugees, a teacher from Earth's colonies. Now she led the civilian government that kept humanity's society functioning. Under her guidance, they had created something new. Without scarcity, traditional money became meaningless. Instead, people earned status by contributing to the community. Scientists who made discoveries, artists who created beauty, workers who kept the cities running, all were valued equally. The Federation used fear and force to control others, Amanda continued. We can choose to be different. We can be protectors instead of tyrants. Can we? Jake asked. Look at what we've become. Sarah just erased something from existence without breaking a sweat. Our ships can tear holes in space-time. We're not the same species that left Earth 25 years ago. No, we're not, Amanda agreed. But we still remember what it was like to be weak. We remember what it felt like to lose everything. That memory is what will keep us human, no matter how powerful we become. Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent message from the Deep Labs. Dr. Emma Hayes had finally perfected the technology they needed to return to normal space. More importantly, she had solved the problem of how to bring their void-enhanced abilities with them. Jake, Stone, and Amanda made their way to the laboratory complex at the heart of New Terra. The labs were carved into a mountain of crystallized void energy, their walls pulsing with soft light that responded to the thoughts of everyone inside. They found Dr. Hayes standing before a massive viewing screen that showed the edge of the void. Beyond it, normal space waited like a distant memory. It's ready, Emma announced without turning around. The dimensional anchor will let us maintain our connection to the void even in normal space. Our abilities will work there, though not as strongly as they do here. Admiral Grant, now elderly but kept vital by void energy, stepped out of the shadows. Then it's time to vote. Do we return to normal space and face our enemies? The vote was held throughout New Terra and broadcast to every ship in the fleet. Humans who had been born in the void debated with the original refugees. Some wanted to stay and continue exploring the wonders of their strange new home. Others burned for revenge against the Federation that had destroyed their homeworld. In the end, the decision was unanimous. They would return. Jake stood on the bridge of the Void's Wrath, Admiral Grant's new flagship, as the human fleet prepared for the journey back to normal space. The ship itself was barely recognizable as something humans had built. Its hull was made of crystallized darkness that seemed to absorb light. Its engines drew power directly from the fabric of reality itself. All ships report ready, Sarah Kim announced from her station. She was now Admiral Grant's chief of staff, her void-born abilities making her invaluable for coordinating the fleet's complex operations. Then let's go home, Admiral Grant ordered. The tear in space that opened before them was different from the one they had used to escape. This was controlled, precise, a doorway between dimensions that they could close behind them if needed. Through it, Jake could see stars that he recognized from his childhood on Earth. The human fleet emerged into normal space at the edge of the Nexary system. Immediately, alarms began sounding on Federation monitoring stations. The crystalline beings who had helped plan humanity's enslavement scrambled to understand what they were seeing. Ships that shouldn't exist, made of materials that didn't follow known physics, crewed by beings who had once been the galaxy's weakest species. The Nexary tried to scan the human vessels but found that their instruments simply couldn't process what they were looking at. Admiral Grant's voice echoed across all Federation frequencies. "This is Admiral Lisa Grant of the Human Void Fleet. 25 years ago, you tried to enslave us. When we refused, you committed genocide against our people. Today, we return to collect our debt." The Nexari Defense Fleet, once the terror of a dozen star systems, moved to intercept the human ships. They had plasma cannons that could boil oceans and shield generators that could deflect the power of suns. None of it mattered. The human ships didn't fight in 3 dimensions like normal vessels. They phased in and out of reality, attacking from angles that couldn't exist. Their weapons didn't just destroy enemy ships. They edited them out of existence, convinced reality that they had never been there at all. The battle lasted 17 minutes. When it was over, the Nexari homeworld's defense fleet was gone. Not destroyed, not defeated, but simply absent, as if it had never existed. And throughout the galaxy, other species began to receive a simple message: the humans have returned. The Nexari homeworld of Christos had never known fear. For 3,000 years, its crystal cities had stood untouched by war, protected by the most advanced fleet in the galaxy. The planet's 14 billion inhabitants lived in towers that sang with harmonic frequencies, their crystalline bodies resonating with the music of their civilization. Now their cities were silent. Admiral Kevin Walsh stood on the bridge of the Void's Wrath as his fleet surrounded the planet. He had been a young engineer when humanity first fled into the Void. Now he was humanity's supreme commander, his body enhanced by 25 years of Void exposure until he could survive in the vacuum of space without a suit. Nexari government is requesting terms of surrender, reported Commander Lisa Torres from her station. She was one of the first Void-born, her silver-tinted skin marking her as part of the new generation. They're offering full reparations and acknowledgement of human superiority. Walsh studied the planet below. The crystal beings had helped plan humanity's enslavement. They had provided the technology to track human ships during the Great Betrayal. Their weapons had burned human colonies to ash. "No terms," Walsh said quietly. "Give them the same choice we give all Federation species. Exile or death." "Sir," said Captain Tony Garcia from the communications station, "Dr. Green is requesting permission to speak with you." Walsh sighed. Dr. Rachel Green led the faction of humans who believed their return should be about liberation, not conquest. She had been arguing for mercy since their first victory, claiming that humanity was becoming no better than their former oppressors. "Put her through." Dr. Green's image appeared on the main screen. She was aboard the medical ship Healing Light, treating wounded refugees from the battles. "Admiral, please reconsider. The Nexari are offering complete surrender. We could use their knowledge to help rebuild the galaxy instead of just destroying everything." "The galaxy doesn't need rebuilding," Walsh replied. "It needs new management. The old species had their chance to rule wisely. They chose slavery and genocide instead. But we're doing the same thing." Green protested. "We're using our power to force others to submit. How does that make us different from the Federation?" Walsh's expression hardened. "The difference, Doctor, is that we remember what it's like to be on the other side. We remember watching our homeworld burn while these crystal beings celebrated their victory. That memory will keep us from becoming what they were." He cut the transmission and turned back to his officers. "Begin the evacuation. Any Nexari who choose exile will be transported to the Rim worlds. The rest can stay and share their planet's fate." Commander Torres worked at her station, coordinating the massive transportation effort. Human ships equipped with void-enhanced teleportation systems began moving millions of Nexari off their homeworld. Most chose exile, their crystalline forms flickering with fear as they were relocated to barely habitable worlds at the galaxy's edge. But not all of them left. Nearly 1 billion Nexari refused to abandon their ancient cities, choosing to die with their civilization rather than live as refugees. Walsh watched their decision with something that might have been respect. "They have courage," he admitted to Torres. "Misguided, but courage nonetheless." "What about their planet?" Torres asked. "Do we destroy it?" Walsh considered this. The old humanity might have left Christos as a monument to Nexari civilization. But the old humanity had been weak, trusting, and ultimately betrayed. The new humanity was harder. No, he decided. We keep it. Strip out their technology and convert it for our use. The planet becomes a human world now. The transformation of Christos began immediately. Human engineers worked with void-enhanced tools to reshape the crystal cities. The harmonic towers that had sung for millennia were converted into resonance amplifiers for human technology. The great libraries became storage centers for architect knowledge. Dr. Helen Parker, humanity's chief xenobiologist, studied the Nexari who had chosen exile. Interesting, she reported to Admiral Walsh during their weekly briefing. They've been genetically modified over thousands of years. The Federation species have been breeding themselves to be more efficient, more specialized. They've lost much of their adaptability. Meaning what? Walsh asked. Meaning they can't change the way we did. The void transformed us because we were still flexible enough to accept it. These older species have made themselves too rigid. They're evolutionary dead ends. This news spread through the human fleet quickly. It confirmed what many had already begun to suspect. The older species weren't just enemies, they were obsolete. Humanity represented something new, something that could adapt and grow in ways the ancient civilizations never could. The conquest of the Etherian cloud worlds came next. These beings had ruled vast gas giant planets for 10,000 years, their atmospheric manipulation abilities making them masters of weather and climate. They had used these powers to terraform worlds for the Federation, creating perfect environments for conquest. Captain Brian Murphy led the assault with his squadron of void-born pilots. Their ships moved through the gas giant's atmosphere like dolphins through water, immune to the pressure and toxic gases that would have killed normal humans instantly. The Etherians tried to use their weather control against the human ships, summoning storms that could tear apart mountains. Lightning that could boil seas struck the human vessels harmlessly. Winds that could flatten cities barely slowed them down. They don't understand, Murphy reported as his squadron carved through the Etherian defenses. They're still thinking in terms of normal physics. Our ships exist partially in the void. Physical attacks can't hurt us the way they used to. The Etherian surrender came within hours. Like the Nexari, they were given the choice of exile or death. Most chose exile, their gas cloud forms compressed into containment suits as they were relocated to the galaxy's outer reaches. But it was the Vorthack response that really mattered. The telepathic species had been the true leaders of the Federation, their mental abilities allowing them to coordinate the other species with perfect efficiency. When news of humanity's return reached them, they tried something desperate. They attempted to take control of human minds directly. The psychic assault struck the human fleet like a wave of mental force. For a moment, Walsh felt alien thoughts trying to push into his consciousness, trying to turn him into a puppet of the Vorthack collective. Around him, some of the older humans staggered as the telepathic attack hit them. But the Void-born were unaffected. Their minds existed partially in dimensions the Vorthack couldn't reach. Sarah Kim and her fellow Void-born simply stood there as the psychic storm raged around them, looking mildly annoyed. "Is that it?" Sarah asked, her voice carrying across the bridge. "That's their big weapon." The Vorthack attack had failed completely. Worse, it had revealed their location. Human ships equipped with telepathic dampeners began jumping toward the Vorthack core worlds, following the psychic signatures back to their source. But before they could reach the Vorthack system, another message came through on all frequencies. This one wasn't from any known Federation species. "We are the inheritors," the voice said, speaking in perfect human English. "We have watched your transformation with great interest. The void was never meant for organic minds. You have stolen power that belongs to us." Walsh felt something cold settle in his stomach. "Torres, scan for the source of that transmission." "I can't find it, sir," Torres replied, her voice troubled. "It's coming from everywhere and nowhere at once." The message continued. "Your species has been marked for judgment. The test you passed was not meant to make you strong. It was meant to make you suitable for absorption. We are coming to collect what is ours." As the transmission ended, sensors throughout the human fleet began detecting something impossible. Ships were appearing at the edge of Nexary space, but they weren't using any known form of travel. They simply began existing where they hadn't been before. These vessels were made of pure energy, their forms shifting and changing like living thoughts. They moved through space without engines, traveled faster than light without creating ripples in space-time. The architects, Dr. Hayes whispered from her research station. They left records about these beings. They called them the inheritors. They were supposed to be extinct. Apparently not, Walsh said grimly. All ships, prepare for combat. It looks like we have new enemies. As the energy ships began their approach, Walsh realized that humanity's return to normal space had triggered something far larger than a simple war of revenge. They had awakened forces that had been sleeping since before the Federation existed. The galaxy was about to learn that there were worse things than human anger. There were beings that viewed the entire physical universe as their property, and they had come to reclaim it. The Etherian gas clouds of Nimbus Station had never imagined they could feel helpless. For 8,000 years, they had controlled the weather of entire star systems, shaping atmospheres to their will. Now they watched through their containment suits as human ships moved through their former territory like ghosts through walls. Captain Brian Murphy's squadron didn't follow normal flight patterns. His ships phased in and out of reality, appearing inside Etherian storm barriers, striking from directions that shouldn't exist, then vanishing before the defenders could respond. Murphy himself had changed dramatically since entering the void. His body could survive in the vacuum of space, and his mind could process information at speeds that made traditional combat computers seem slow. When he piloted his ship, it responded to his thoughts as much as his hands. Target the weather control centers, Murphy ordered his squadron. Remember, we're not just here to win. We're here to send a message. The message was simple: the old rules no longer applied. Species that had ruled the galaxy for millennia were being swept aside by beings they had dismissed as primitive. The Etherians' ability to control wind and storm meant nothing against enemies who could step sideways out of reality itself. But humanity wasn't just destroying. They were replacing. On the world of Kepler-7, Major Jennifer Clark led the first large-scale occupation of a former Federation planet. The native Zephyrians had been enslaved by the Federation for centuries, their beautiful wings clipped and their aerial cities converted into industrial facilities. Clark's forces arrived not as conquerors but as liberators. The first thing they did was restore the Zephyrians' ability to fly, using void-enhanced medical technology to regenerate their damaged wings. The second thing they did was give them a choice. Your people can be free, Clark told the Zephyrian Council in their ancient meeting hall, high in the clouds above their world. But freedom comes with responsibility. You can govern yourselves, but you will be under human protection. In exchange, we ask for your loyalty and cooperation. The Zephyrian Elder, an ancient being whose wings had been restored to their full glory, studied Clark carefully. And if we refuse? Clark's expression didn't change. Then you can share the fate of your former masters. But I don't think you'll refuse. We're offering you something the Federation never did. We're offering you a choice. The Zephyrians chose wisely. They became humanity's first client species, trading their independence for protection and technology. It was a pattern that would repeat across dozens of worlds as the human advance continued. Dr. Helen Parker studied these client species from her mobile laboratory aboard the research vessel Discovery. What she found troubled her. The Federation hadn't just enslaved other species, they had systematically bred them to be better servants. Look at this, she showed Admiral Walsh during one of their regular briefings. The holographic display showed genetic comparisons between current Zephyrians and samples from their ancient past. Their aggression levels have been reduced by 60% over the past 1,000 years. Their curiosity has been dampened. Their ability to think independently has been systematically bred out of them. Walsh studied the data with growing anger. They were turning them into livestock. Intelligent livestock, Parker corrected. Smart enough to be useful, but not smart enough to rebel. It's been done to most of the species in Federation space. They're all dependent on Federation technology and guidance because they've been bred to be dependent. This discovery changed how humanity approached their conquest. They weren't just fighting enemy soldiers, they were trying to reverse millennia of genetic slavery. Human medical teams began developing treatments to restore the natural abilities that the Federation had bred out of various species. But not every species wanted to be fixed. Some had accepted their modified nature and saw humanity's efforts as another form of oppression. These groups formed the core of continued resistance against human expansion. The war against the Hydrosians proved the most difficult so far. These aquatic beings had served as the Federation's diplomatic corps, using their natural empathy and emotional manipulation abilities to keep other species in line. When humanity approached their waterworld capitals, the Hydrosians tried to use these same abilities against their new enemies. They failed spectacularly. Commander Amy Johnson led the assault on the Hydrosian capital of Aquatica Prime. Her void-born soldiers walked on the ocean floor as easily as they walked on land, their enhanced bodies needing no breathing apparatus or pressure suits. When the Hydrosians tried to manipulate their emotions, they found minds that existed partially outside normal spacetime. "It's like trying to grab water with their bare hands," Johnson reported to Admiral Walsh. "Their empathic abilities just slide off us. They have no idea how to fight enemies they can't influence." The Hydrosian surrender came with an offer that surprised everyone. Chancellor Vextar, the species' supreme leader, offered humanity full membership in a reformed federation. The remaining species would acknowledge human superiority and serve under human leadership. Admiral Walsh's response was broadcast across the galaxy. Instead of words, he simply targeted the moon where the offer had been transmitted and removed it from existence. Not destroyed, not blown apart, but simply edited out of reality as if it had never been there. "We tried diplomacy once," Walsh's voice echoed on all Federation frequencies. "We offered peace, cooperation, and friendship. You answered with genocide. We are not the same species you exiled. We are your replacements." The psychological impact of the moon's disappearance was enormous. Federation species began surrendering without fighting, entire star systems submitting to human authority rather than risk being unmade the way the Hydrosian moon had been. But not all humans were comfortable with this level of power. Dr. Rachel Green continued to argue for moderation, pointing out that humanity was becoming everything they had once fought against. "We're using fear to control others," Green argued during a fleet-wide conference. "We're threatening entire populations with extinction if they don't submit. How is that different from what the Federation did to us?" Admiral Walsh listened to her arguments with patience he didn't feel. "The difference, Doctor, is that we remember what it's like to be powerless. That memory will keep us from becoming tyrants." "Will it?" Green challenged. "Look at what we just did to the Hydrosians. We erased their moon to make a point. How many innocents were on that moon? How many children?" Walsh's face hardened. The Hydrosians had a choice. They chose to continue fighting instead of surrendering. The consequences of that choice are on them, not us. "And when does it end?" Green pressed. "When do we stop killing and start building something better?" Walsh turned to look out at the stars visible through the ship's windows. "It ends when no one is left who remembers the Federation. When every species in the galaxy knows that humans protect those who serve loyally and destroy those who threaten us. When the very idea of enslaving or betraying humanity becomes unthinkable." But even as Walsh spoke these words, new reports were coming in from the Outer Rim. The mysterious inheritors were not just attacking human ships. They were targeting the client species under human protection, destroying entire worlds that had allied with humanity. Worse, they seemed to be learning from each encounter. Their energy ships were adapting to human tactics, becoming harder to detect and more difficult to fight. Some human vessels had simply vanished, their crews absorbed into the Inheritor Collective without a trace. Dr. Emma Hayes worked frantically to understand the new enemy. "They're not just energy beings," she reported to Admiral Walsh. "They're patterns of consciousness that can inhabit any sufficiently complex system. They were the ones who built the void originally, not as a refuge, but as a trap." "A trap for what?" Walsh asked. "For species like us," Hayes replied grimly. "They created the void to corrupt any species powerful enough to master it. We were never meant to inherit the architect's power. We were meant to become their servants. As if summoned by her words, alarms began sounding throughout the fleet. Inheritor ships were materializing around them, not just in normal space but in multiple dimensions simultaneously. This time, they weren't here to send messages. They were here to collect what they believed was theirs, humanity itself. Admiral Walsh looked out at the approaching energy vessels and felt something he hadn't experienced in 25 years. For the first time since entering the void, humanity faced an enemy that might actually be stronger than they were. All ships, battle stations, he ordered. It's time to see if gods can bleed. The world of Haven didn't appear on any official human star charts. Hidden in a nebula that interfered with most scanning equipment, it had been settled by deserters from Admiral Walsh's fleet. These were humans who had refused to accept the void enhancements, who believed that humanity was losing its soul in pursuit of power. Dr. Peter Williams stood in the colony's main square, watching children play games that would have been impossible anywhere else in human space. These children ran and laughed like humans had always done, without phasing through walls or manipulating reality with their thoughts. They were normal, and Williams believed that normality was humanity's most precious gift. "Contact ship approaching," announced his assistant, Dr. Kate Phillips. "It's broadcasting human identification codes." Williams felt his stomach tighten. They had always known this day would come. Admiral Walsh's forces would eventually discover Haven and demand that its residents submit to the new order. The question was what they would do when the colony refused. The ship that landed in Haven's spaceport was sleek and dark, its hull made of the crystallized void material that marked all human vessels now. From it emerged Captain Amy Johnson, her silver-tinted skin marking her as one of the Voidborn. She wore the black uniform of humanity's new military, and her eyes held depths that seemed to go on forever. "Dr. Williams," Johnson said as she approached. "I'm here under Admiral Walsh's orders to bring you and your people back to the fleet." Williams studied her carefully. Johnson was young, probably born in the void, but she carried herself with the confidence of someone who had never known defeat. "And if we refuse? Then I'm authorized to use whatever force is necessary," Johnson replied, but Williams heard something in her voice. Doubt, maybe, or reluctance. "Would you like to see what you're being asked to destroy?" Williams asked. Against her better judgment, Johnson accepted the tour. Williams showed her through Haven streets, past markets where vendors sold goods with smiles instead of calculating profit margins. They visited schools where children learned about art and music and philosophy instead of just military tactics and reality manipulation. In the medical center, Johnson saw something that stopped her cold. Human patients recovering from injuries were healing at normal rates, their bodies mending slowly and naturally instead of regenerating instantly. But they were laughing with their doctors, sharing stories, creating connections that seemed deeper than anything she had experienced in the enhanced fleet. "They're happy," Johnson said quietly. "They're human," Williams corrected. "The way we used to be before the void changed us." Williams led her to his private office and showed her recordings he had been collecting. Videos from the conquest showing human soldiers disintegrating enemy combatants without any visible emotion. Void-born commanders ordering the destruction of ancient cultural sites with the same tone they might use to order lunch. "Watch their faces," Williams said. "Look at their eyes. Do you see any joy in victory? Any sadness for the destruction? Any humanity at all?" Johnson watched the recordings in silence. She saw herself in some of them, carrying out orders with perfect efficiency and no apparent emotional response. "We're effective," she said finally. "You're efficient," Williams corrected. "There's a difference. A human army would celebrate victories, mourn losses, question orders that seemed wrong. Your people do exactly what they're told without hesitation or emotion. You've become the perfect soldiers." "Is that bad?" Johnson asked. Williams activated another recording. This one showed a Nexari child crying over the crystal remains of its parent. The child's distress was obvious, but the human soldiers in the scene ignored it completely, continuing their mission without even noticing the young being's pain. "That child is suffering," Williams said. "And your soldiers see it as irrelevant. They've lost the ability to empathize with other forms of life. How is that different from what the Federation became?" Johnson felt something she hadn't experienced in years. Confusion. Doubt. Emotions that the void enhancement had suppressed but not completely eliminated. We're protecting humanity. We're making sure no one can hurt us again. By becoming incapable of being hurt ourselves, Williams replied. But if you can't be hurt, can you still love? If you can't feel pain, can you still feel joy? If you can't cry, can you still laugh? Before Johnson could answer, alarms began sounding throughout Haven. Emergency broadcasts filled the airwaves with reports of attacks across human space. The Inheritors had begun their major offensive, and they weren't just targeting military vessels. Johnson watched in horror as reports came in from colonies throughout human territory. The energy beings were attacking civilian populations, attempting to possess human minds directly. But they were having different levels of success with different types of humans. The enhanced humans are being taken, Williams said as he studied the reports. The void modifications make them susceptible to inheritor possession. But the unenhanced populations are showing resistance. Johnson felt ice form in her chest. That's impossible. The enhanced humans are stronger. Stronger, yes. But also more rigid. The void changed your neural patterns, made them more efficient but less flexible. The Inheritors can override those patterns more easily than they can take control of natural human minds. More reports flooded in. Admiral Walsh's flagship had gone silent. Entire squadrons of void-born soldiers had turned their weapons on their own comrades. The enhancement that was supposed to make humanity invincible was being turned against them. We have to help, Johnson said, her training overriding her doubts. We will, Williams replied. But not the way you expect. Within hours, Haven's small fleet launched toward the battle zones. Their ships were older, slower, and equipped with conventional technology instead of void enhancements. But they carried something the main fleet had lost: unpredictability. The Inheritors had studied void-enhanced humans for years, learning to counter their abilities and exploit their mental patterns. But they had never encountered unenhanced humans operating modern technology. Williams' people fought in ways that made no tactical sense from an enhanced perspective, using emotional responses and intuitive decisions that confused the energy beings. Captain Steve Carter, one of Williams' military advisors, led a daring rescue mission to recover survivors from a possessed human ship. Instead of using overwhelming force like the enhanced forces would have, his team used stealth and misdirection, playing on the Inheritors' expectations about human behavior. They expect us to be logical, Carter explained as his team prepared for the mission. They expect us to choose the most efficient solution. So we'll do the opposite. We'll be illogical, inefficient, and human. The mission succeeded, but the rescued survivors brought disturbing news. Dr. Rachel Green, the leader of the Moderation faction, had been studying the Inheritor possession process. She had discovered something that changed everything. The Inheritors aren't trying to conquer us, Green explained in a coded transmission to Haven. They're trying to save the galaxy from us. Our void enhancements are draining life energy from normal space. Every time we use our reality warping abilities, we pull power from the fundamental forces that hold the universe together. Williams felt the weight of this revelation. We're killing the galaxy. Not intentionally, Green continued. But the effect is the same. Stars are starting to dim in areas where human fleets operate. Planets are becoming barren. The Inheritors are trying to stop us before we destroy everything. Johnson, who had been listening to the transmission, felt her worldview crumble. So we're the villains. Not villains, Williams said carefully. But not heroes either. We're survivors who gained power without understanding its cost. The question is what we do now that we know. The answer came from an unexpected source. Reports began arriving of a new faction emerging within the human fleet. These were enhanced humans who had somehow found a way to retain their emotional connections while keeping their abilities. They called themselves the Balanced, and they claimed to have found a solution to the crisis. General Patricia Lee, one of the original refugees and a respected military leader, was leading this new faction. Her messages spoke of a procedure that could merge void enhancement with natural human consciousness, creating beings who were powerful but still truly human. The process is dangerous, Lee's transmission warned. Half of those who undergo it die. But those who survive emerge as something new. We retain our abilities but recover our humanity. We can be powerful without being monstrous. Williams looked at Johnson, who was staring at the transmission with obvious longing. Are you thinking of trying it? I don't know, Johnson admitted. I've been enhanced for so long, I'm not sure I remember what being fully human feels like. But watching your people, seeing how they live and love and laugh. I want that. I want to feel things again. Outside Haven's windows, the war raged on. Enhanced humans fought inheritors while unenhanced humans tried to rescue survivors from both sides. The galaxy burned as three different versions of humanity struggled to find a path forward. And in the deep void between stars, ancient forces stirred. The crisis had awakened things that had slept since the universe was young, entities that would not allow their cosmos to be destroyed by the ambitions of any species, no matter how powerful they had become. The galaxy was dying. Captain Steve Carter watched the readings from his ship's sensors and felt a despair deeper than anything he had experienced during the darkest days of the war. Stars that had burned for billions of years were dimming. Planets that had supported life for eons were becoming cold and barren. And it was humanity's fault. Another system gone dark, reported his navigator, Lieutenant Tom Foster. That's 12 in the past week. At this rate, the entire galactic arm will be dead within a year. Carter nodded grimly. Every time the enhanced humans used their reality warping abilities, they drew energy from the fundamental forces that held the universe together. What had seemed like unlimited power was actually borrowed time, stolen from the very fabric of existence itself. His ship, the Redemption, was part of Dr. Peter Williams' unenhanced fleet, working desperately to evacuate populations from the dying systems. But they could only save a fraction of the beings who needed help. Billions were dying as their worlds grew cold and dark. Sir, we're receiving a transmission from New Terra, reported Communications Officer Lisa Ray. It's General Lee. Carter felt a spark of hope. General Patricia Lee had been working on something called the balance process, a way to merge void enhancement with natural human consciousness. If she had succeeded, it might offer a way out of the crisis. Lee's image appeared on the main screen. She looked older than her years, her face marked by the stress of recent battles. But her eyes held something that had been missing from enhanced humans for decades, genuine emotion. Captain Carter, Lee said, I'm broadcasting this message to all human forces, enhanced and unenhanced. We found a solution, but it requires cooperation from all three factions. The general explained that the balance process could not only restore humanity's emotional connections but also regulate their use of void energy. Balanced humans could access their enhanced abilities without draining power from normal space. The process is dangerous, Lee warned. Half of those who attempt it die. But those who survive become something new. We retain our power but regain our humanity. More importantly, we can use our abilities sustainably. Carter leaned forward. What do you need from us? The unenhanced populations are immune to inheritor possession, Lee explained. We need your people to help protect the conversion facilities while we perform the balance process on volunteers from the enhanced fleet. Without your protection, the inheritors will stop us before we can complete the work. It was a dangerous proposition. The unenhanced humans would be putting themselves at risk to help the very people who had become their enemies. But Carter knew they had no choice. If the galaxy continued dying at its current rate, there would be nothing left to fight over. The decision to cooperate was not easy. On Haven, Dr. Williams faced angry crowds of colonists who had fled the enhanced fleet precisely to avoid this kind of involvement. Many argued that they should let the enhanced humans and the inheritors destroy each other. They chose power over humanity, shouted one colonist during a heated town meeting. Why should we risk our lives to save them? Williams stood before the angry crowd, thinking of the dying stars and the billions of innocent beings caught in humanity's war. Because they're still human, he said finally. And because if we don't help them, everyone dies. Not just humans, but every living thing in the galaxy. The vote was close, but cooperation won. Haven's fleet began moving toward the coordinates Lee had provided, a hidden facility in the outer rim where the first large-scale balance conversions would take place. Captain Amy Johnson was among the first volunteers for the balance process. She lay on the medical table in Lee's facility, her enhanced body connected to machines that hummed with both human technology and void energy. "Are you ready?" asked Dr. Sarah Mitchell, the scientist overseeing the procedure. Johnson nodded, though fear twisted in her stomach. The process would either restore her humanity or kill her. There was no middle ground. The conversion began with pain unlike anything Johnson had ever experienced. It felt as if her consciousness was being torn apart and rebuilt at the same time. Memories she had suppressed for years came flooding back, the joy of her first flight in space, the sorrow she had felt when Earth died, the love she had once felt for her family. For a moment, she thought she was dying. Her enhanced abilities seemed to be burning out of her body, leaving her weak and ordinary. But then something new took their place. The abilities returned, but different now. Instead of cold efficiency, they carried warmth. Instead of detached power, they brought understanding. When the process was complete, Johnson sat up slowly. She could still phase through solid matter and manipulate reality, but now she could also feel the weight of using those abilities. She could sense how her actions affected the fabric of space-time around her. "How do you feel?" Dr. Mitchell asked. Johnson smiled, and it was the first genuine smile she had worn in 25 years. "I feel human." But not everyone was willing to undergo the balance process. Admiral Walsh led a faction of enhanced humans who refused to give up their power, arguing that the crisis was a test they could overcome through force alone. "We didn't survive the Federation's betrayal and conquer half the galaxy just to weaken ourselves now," Walsh declared during a fleet-wide broadcast. "The universe will adapt to our presence, or we'll make it adapt." Walsh's faction began attacking the balance facilities, viewing them as a threat to enhanced human supremacy. At the same time, the inheritors intensified their own attacks, attempting to possess as many humans as possible before the balance process could be completed. The three-way war that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Enhanced humans fought balanced humans while both groups struggled against inheritor possession. Unenhanced humans tried to protect the conversion facilities while evacuating civilians from the crossfire. Captain Carter found himself in the middle of the largest battle when Walsh's fleet attacked the main balance facility. The enhanced humans' ships phased in and out of reality, their reality-warping weapons tearing holes in space itself. But each attack made the surrounding stars dimmer, hastening the galaxy's death. The balanced humans fought differently. Their abilities were just as powerful but more controlled, their attacks precisely targeted to minimize damage to the fabric of spacetime. They moved like dancers rather than destroyers, their enhanced consciousness allowing them to see the connections between all things. It was during this battle that Dr. Rachel Green made her final discovery. Studying the energy patterns of the dying stars, she realized that the damage could be reversed if humanity was willing to make a sacrifice. "The void energy we've been using doesn't just come from nowhere," Green explained in an emergency broadcast to all human forces. "It comes from potential futures, possibilities that could have existed but now never will. We've been stealing the galaxy's future to power our present." Her solution was radical. If enough humans underwent the balance process and then voluntarily merged their consciousness with the void itself, they could become living regulators of the cosmic energy. They would give up their individual existence to become part of the universe's fundamental structure. General Lee was the first to volunteer. "I've spent my whole life fighting for humanity's survival," she said as she prepared for the merge. "Now I can ensure that survival by becoming something more than human." The merge process was beautiful and terrible to watch. Lee's body dissolved into pure energy, but her consciousness expanded to encompass entire star systems. She became a living bridge between the void and normal space, regulating the flow of energy to prevent further damage. Other balanced humans followed her example. Captain Johnson, Dr. Mitchell, and dozens of others chose to sacrifice their individual existence for the good of all life. As they merged with the void, the dying stars began to brighten again. Planets that had grown cold started to warm. Admiral Walsh watched this process with growing horror. "They're destroying themselves," he said to his remaining followers. "They're giving up everything that makes them powerful." But Captain Carter, observing from his unenhanced ship, saw something different. "They're not destroying themselves," he said quietly. "They're becoming something greater. They're becoming the guardians the galaxy needs." The final confrontation came when the inheritors made their last desperate attempt to stop the balance process. They revealed their true nature, not conquerors but cosmic immune systems, entities created by the universe itself to destroy any species that threatened the fabric of reality. "You were meant to be our servants," the lead inheritor communicated to the remaining humans. "The void was designed to corrupt you, to make you suitable for absorption. Instead, you have found a way to become part of the cosmic order itself." The inheritors' energy forms began to shift and change. For the first time in eons, they showed something that might have been respect. Perhaps this was the true test. Perhaps the universe did not need new servants but new guardians. As the balance process continued and more humans chose to merge with the void, a new cosmic order began to emerge. The enhanced humans who refused to change found their abilities gradually fading as the regulated void energy no longer responded to purely selfish desires. The unenhanced humans discovered that their resistance to possession made them valuable as the galaxy's new diplomats and administrators. And in the deep structures of space-time itself, the merged humans began their eternal vigil, ensuring that the power of the void would never again threaten the existence of all life. The galaxy had new guardians, and they were more human than any purely human being could ever be. 5 years had passed since the first humans merged with the void. The galaxy looked different now, not just in the political sense but in the fundamental nature of reality itself. Stars that had been dying now burned with renewed vigor. Planets that had grown cold were warming again. Life was returning to systems that had been declared dead. Captain Sarah Kim stood on the bridge of the New Dawn, humanity's new flagship, and watched as the last of the Federation resistance surrendered. The Vortak had held out the longest, their telepathic abilities and psychic amplifiers making them difficult to defeat. But even they could not stand against the new human order. "The Vortak High Council is requesting terms," reported Commander Jake Martinez from his communications station. Unlike the enhanced humans of the past, Martinez smiled when he delivered good news. The balance process had restored humanity's emotional connections while allowing them to keep their abilities. "Standard terms," Kim replied. "Protectorate status, full disarmament, and resettlement assistance for any who choose exile." It had been her idea to offer choice instead of just demanding submission. The old enhanced humans had ruled through fear, but the balanced humans understood that true strength came from willing cooperation rather than forced obedience. The surrender ceremony took place on the Vortak homeworld of Mind Reach. The telepathic beings gathered in their great crystal amphitheater, their pale faces reflecting the light of their dying sun. Chancellor Kexthan, the same being who had betrayed humanity 50 years ago, stood at the center of the gathering. "We surrender unconditionally," Kexthan said, his mental voice carrying resignation and something that might have been relief. "We place our people under human protection." Kim studied the ancient being who had started this war. She could have killed him with a thought, could have erased his entire species from existence. The power was there, regulated but still immense. Instead, she chose a different path. "Chancellor Kexthan," she said formally, "you and your people are granted protectorate status under the Terran hegemony. Your world will be protected, your culture preserved, and your people given the opportunity to rebuild. In exchange, we ask for your cooperation and your knowledge." The Vortak looked surprised. They had expected revenge, punishment, perhaps extinction. Instead, they were being offered a chance to survive and even thrive under human guidance. But the galaxy still faced challenges. Admiral Walsh and his faction of unreformed enhanced humans had retreated to the galactic core, where they continued to resist the new order. Their ships moved through the dense star fields like predators, attacking anyone who supported the balance process. "Walsh won't give up," warned Dr. Peter Williams during a strategy meeting aboard the New Dawn. The leader of the unenhanced humans had become humanity's chief diplomat, his natural empathy making him invaluable in dealing with other species. He still believes that pure enhancement is the only way to ensure human survival. Kim nodded. She had served under Walsh once, had respected his strength and determination. But power without restraint had corrupted him, turning a hero into something monstrous. Any word from the merged humans? General Lee's consciousness touched mine yesterday, reported Dr. Emma Hayes, one of the few original refugees still in physical form. She and the others are working to contain the damage Walsh's faction is causing, but they can't intervene directly without risking the cosmic balance they're maintaining. The final confrontation came when Walsh's forces attacked New Terra, the mobile capital that had become the symbol of humanity's new order. His ship, the Entropy's End, had been so extensively modified with void technology that it barely looked human anymore. It existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, its weapons capable of rewriting reality itself. All civilians to the shelters, Kim ordered as Walsh's fleet emerged from fold space around New Terra. All balanced units, prepare for combat. Remember, we're not trying to destroy them. We're trying to save them. The battle that followed was unlike anything in recorded history. Walsh's enhanced humans fought with the desperate fury of beings who knew they were fighting for their very existence. Their reality-warping weapons tore holes in space-time, their phase-shifted ships attacked from angles that shouldn't exist. But the balanced humans fought with something more powerful than pure ability, they fought with purpose. Every attack was precisely controlled, every defensive move designed to minimize collateral damage. They were not trying to prove their superiority but to protect the new order they had helped create. Captain Amy Johnson, now fully balanced and serving as Kim's tactical officer, coordinated the defense with fluid grace. Walsh is targeting the conversion facilities, she reported. He's trying to prevent any more of his people from undergoing the balance process. Kim made a decision that would have been impossible for the old enhanced humans. Open a channel to Walsh's ship. Let me talk to him. Walsh's image appeared on the main screen, and Kim was shocked by what she saw. The man who had once been humanity's greatest admiral was barely recognizable as human anymore. His body had been so extensively modified by void energy that he seemed to flicker between dimensions. His eyes held the cold fire of someone who had sacrificed everything for power. Sarah, Walsh said, his voice carrying harmonics that hurt to hear. Still playing at being human, I see. I am human, Kevin, Kim replied. More human than I've been in decades. The balance process didn't take away our power. It gave us back our souls. Walsh's laugh was like breaking glass. Souls are weakness. Emotion is inefficiency. We transcended those limitations when we entered the void. I won't let you drag humanity back down to what we were. What we were was worth saving, Kim said firmly. Our capacity for love, for sacrifice, for choosing to do what's right instead of what's easy. That's what makes us human. That's what makes us worth the power we've gained. Then you're fools, Walsh replied. And fools don't deserve to rule the galaxy. The Entropy's End began to charge its main weapon, a reality-warping cannon that could erase entire fleets from existence. But before it could fire, something unexpected happened. The weapon began to malfunction, its energy patterns fluctuating wildly. Sir, one of Walsh's officers reported in panic, the void energy is destabilizing. It's like something is fighting us for control. Kim smiled as she felt a familiar presence touch her mind. General Lee and the other merged humans were intervening, not directly but subtly, using their connection to the void to disrupt Walsh's weapons. You can't win, Kevin, Kim said gently. The universe itself is against you now. The merged humans won't let you destroy what we've built. Walsh's face twisted with rage and something that might have been despair. Then I'll take you all with me. He began overloading his ship's engines, preparing to detonate the Entropy's End in a blast that would destroy everything within several light years. It was the final act of a man who had chosen power over humanity and found that power was not enough. But Kim had one last card to play. Computer, open communication to all ships, all factions, all frequencies. Her image appeared on screens throughout the galaxy, reaching enhanced humans, unenhanced humans, and balanced humans alike. She also transmitted to the surviving Federation species and the inheritors who still watched from the edge of space. My name is Sarah Kim, she began. I'm speaking to you as a human being, not as a military commander or political leader. 50 years ago, our species was betrayed and nearly destroyed. We survived by becoming something new, something powerful. But in gaining that power, we lost sight of what made us worth saving in the first place. She paused, looking directly at Walsh's image on her screen. We have a choice now. We can be gods, ruling through fear and force, taking what we want because we're strong enough to take it. Or we can be guardians, using our power to protect and nurture the life we find in this galaxy. Her words reached Walsh's crew, many of whom had been enhanced for so long they had forgotten what it felt like to be truly human. For the first time in decades, some of them began to question their path. Kevin, Kim said, addressing Walsh directly, you were once the best of us. You led humanity through its darkest hour and brought us to safety. Don't let that legacy end in destruction. Let us help you remember what you're fighting for. For a moment, Walsh's expression softened. Kim saw a flicker of the man he had once been, the hero who had saved humanity from genocide. But then his face hardened again. It's too late, he said quietly. I've gone too far to turn back now. The entropy's end began its final countdown to self-destruction. But instead of running, Kim made a choice that defined the new humanity. She ordered her ship forward, directly into the path of the coming explosion. All power to shields, she commanded. We're going to absorb the blast. It should have been impossible. The explosion from Walsh's ship would have been enough to destroy a star system. But the New Dawn was more than just a ship now. It was connected to the merged humans in the void, and through them to the fundamental forces of reality itself. As the entropy's end exploded, the New Dawn became a living focal point for the cosmic energy. Kim felt her consciousness expand.